Welcome to the BEASTwriter podcast. I am your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we are going to be discussing and breaking down Mel Kiper's mock draft as it pertains to the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 24. Now let's get started. Now, before we go ahead and do that, I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for subscribing to my channel. Just be sure to hit and flip on the bell notifications so you get notified when I go live or when I upload content. Also, I'm looking at my analytics, and 73% of you are liking my stuff, watching all my videos, but have yet to subscribe to my channel. So please do me a solid and hit the subscribe button right now in the lower right-hand corner of your screen as you stay up to date on all things Beast in real time. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. For those who don't have ESPN Insider, it's a paid subscription, so you won't be able to see mock drafts on ESPN, whether it's Todd McShay or Mel Kiper, unless you have that paid subscription. But I got you covered, so I'm going to go ahead and break it down brick by brick as it pertains to Mel Kiper and his mock draft on what the Steelers would do at pick number 24. All right, let me just pull it up here, and we will get started. He says, and the pick is Landon Dickerson from Alabama. He says, the Steelers have major cap issues and a long list of free agents that include edge rusher Bud Dupree, wide receiver JuJu-Smith Schuster, and tackles Alejandro, Villanueva, and Zach Banner. So their needs will be clearer once we get through free agency. But a center makes sense because of Maurkice Pouncey's retirement. Dickerson could be an immediate replacement. Very true. I agree with that. I really like his game. Me too, Mel Kiper. The Florida State transfer injured his knee in the SEC title game and didn't play in the college football playoff, but the Alabama coaches rave about him on and off the football field. He can be the anchor the Steelers need. Well, all this analysis from Mel Kiper is on point, and I am in agreement with him, and I believe that Landon Dickerson could be the pick. Again, my mock draft is based on how I see that draft actually playing out, not what I would do if I was the team's GM, but Mel Kiper has that same line of thinking, right? So based on analytics, I think he is on point as to what the Steelers might do because, again, the offensive line, and he didn't really touch base and go into depth on it, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. The offensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers is in shambles. When you have Alejandro Villanueva, a former Pro Bowl left tackle, on the market. You have Zach Banner, who's a right tackle, on the market. And then you have moving parts with Maurkice Pouncey announcing his retirement. That's 3 starters that are no longer on the team. And you can roll in Matt Filer, who was the right tackle back in 2019, I believe. Or no, yeah, it was 2019. He was starting right tackle in 2019, then kicked inside for the upcoming season in 2020. And they drafted, of course, Kevin Dotson, the Raging Cajun. For those who don't know, now you know. Kevin Dotson is going to be a perennial Pro Bowl player for years to come, played really well in David DeCastro's absence, and he was one of the better interior offensive linemen, even for a rookie. So with that being said, who makes the line calls at the line of scrimmage? It's Maurkice Pouncey, and he's no longer there. So obviously the need for an offensive center is there. And with the Steelers in salary cap hell, because obviously you have so many upcoming free agents, he forgot to mention nickelback Mike Hilton's an unrestricted free agent, just like K'Waun Williams. So the slot market position for the cornerback is going to be resetting the bar there. But getting back to the specific thing that Mel Kiper's talking about, why would Landon Dickerson, the best center in this year's draft class, be available at pick number 24? Historically, when you look at centers in the draft, if they're really good, they're going to fall in the first round, but they'll fall in anywhere from the 15 to 24 range. I believe that Indianapolis Colts Ryan Kelly, I believe he was number 18 out of Alabama. I don't know. I think he was picked number 18 by the Indianapolis Colts. I have to go back and check, but if I get this right, man, that's crazy. And but yeah, getting back to the center position, especially from Alabama, Landon Dickerson is that guy, and I can see Landon Dickerson being in play because obviously GM Kevin Colbert favors SEC talent, and he likes those type of players down in the trenches. Now, the last first-round pick, I believe that he drafted in the first round since becoming the team's GM was David DeCastro out of Stanford, and I believe that was 2012, I believe. I don't know. I have to look back. I think it was 2012, same draft class as Andrew Luck. I'm not sure, but if I'm getting this right, that's crazy. But no, he was drafted in the first round. I remember that. And I remember that they actually gave him a private workout. And with that being said, yeah, so they don't really typically draft offensive linemen in the first round. But when they do, they usually get it right. Obviously, David DeCastro is a perennial Pro Bowl player for a reason. So Landon Dickerson, although he is a sound football choice at pick number 24, where need meets best player available, I'm going to tell you why it comes with red flags. And Mel Kiper touched on this, and one of the things that he touched on was the injury history, right? So in 2017, he had a torn ACL back at Florida State, playing as a true freshman. In 2018, he had a right ankle injury that ended his season. He had a strong year in 2019 and bounced back, but in 2020, reverted to that injury history that we all have been accustomed to over his first 2 years, and that was another torn ACL with the Alabama Crimson Tide that happened in the Florida State SEC championship game. Now, with that being said, you look at it from a GM's perspective and say, okay, this guy's the best center in the draft. He brings a nasty mean streak, fits our cultural identity on what we'd like to do. Obviously, we need a need on the offensive line. He would be the guy, and we can work with him for the foreseeable future, probably for the next 5-10 years, and get a Pro Bowl offensive center at pick number 24. Not bad, but the best availability is durability. And if he's coming in with red flags, which is his injury history, that's kind of buyers beware, because you don't know what you're getting in return. And any draft pick already is high risk because we don't know how these draft picks are going to pan out. But at the end of the day, that's our job to project and predict, right? And if you get it more times than not, you're looking good. But when it comes to Landon Dickerson, although I think he will be fine and will be a strong player in the upcoming draft, if you watch my earlier podcast, you will know that I had Landon Dickerson going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who hold 2 first-round picks. Obviously, they're getting Trevor Lawrence with their first pick overall, and then double down on that by getting him Landon Dickerson. It's such a GM Trent Baalke thing to do, coming from the all-ACL team. Not throwing shade, or am I? No, I'm not throwing shade. I'm just throwing it out there. But anyways, getting back to Landon Dickerson, I believe he is a strong play here, because what Mel Kiper failed to talk about is he can play the piano along in the interior. I mean, he started off at Florida State at right guard, then switched over to left guard, and now he is the center. So when you have those moving parts, and when you have to play musical chairs because of injuries or whatever the case may be, and you're in the plug and play bind, Landon Dickerson would be a nice immediate upgrade, and you're getting the best center in this year's draft class. Now, games are won down in the trenches, right? I always say that. Games are won down in the trenches from the inside out. And with Maurkice Pouncey's retirement, it does make logical sense. But with that being said, in Mel Kiper's mock draft, you guys all know how I feel about my draft crush, Najee Harris. Najee Harris should be the pick, not Landon Dickerson. It should be his teammate, Najee Harris. Why? Well, he's the best player available, and he would be a steal. He would be a steal at pick number 24. Let's look at it logically, guys. If you guys watched my big board on my top 5 prospects, I included it in the description below of this podcast, so you can see how earlier podcast relates to this one. I have Najee Harris ranked as my number 4 ranked prospect. That's right, my number 4 ranked prospect. Mel Kiper has him ranked inside his top 25, but at number 22. Not because he wears jersey number 22. That's just where he ranks him. Now, that's going to be skyrocket up once he hits his pro day. I bet you that he'll go climb up the top 15, because he's going to have one heck of a pro day. But getting back to this is why you follow me for my forward insight. And I can tell you right now, Najee Harris should be the play at this Pittsburgh Steelers pick number 24. And here's why. I currently have Najee Harris mocked to the Miami Dolphins at number 18. Again, you can catch that on another podcast in the description below. And he would be teaming up with Tua Tagovailoa along with Devontae Smith. Okay, but getting back to this particular podcast, I can see Najee Harris going anywhere from 18 to the 25 range. And when you have a guy like James Conner, right? James Conner, the hometown kid, great story. But in his last 2 years, he really hasn't been getting it done in Le'Veon Bell's absence. I mean, when you put it all together, he only has 1,158 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns. That's not going to get it done for 2 years of production. And when you have an immediate upgrade like Najee Harris, right, you're basically reestablishing the Steeler way. Last year is the short passing game, right? You had Big Ben just gunning and slinging, Deontay Johnson, right? You had guys like Chase Claypool, the rookie, had a standout year his rookie year. And then you had other guys that chime in once in a while, like James Washington, obviously JuJu-Smith Schuster, Eric Ebron, and Vance McDonald, who announced his retirement. But you had pieces in place, and we saw what Big Ben did. It was just a spread formation and used the short passing game to open up the run. Well, that's not the Steelers' MO. It's the ground and pound. It's the throwback north-south ground and pound rushing style. Impose your will down in the trenches. That's what you're getting, and that's what Najee Harris brings to the table. Now, when you take into account Najee Harris, he has too much tread on his tires. Well, I already debunked that in an earlier podcast. Again, you see how earlier podcasts tie into this one? You can watch that podcast in the description below. I have a Najee Harris podcast playlist, and you can go ahead and see why I'm so high on Najee Harris. But again, he's number 4 on my big board. He's a dual threat coming out of the flat. And with Najee Harris, he brings a certain dynamic that James Conner doesn't bring. And to me, I think that's a violent running style. Now, James Conner runs hard, but is he the Najee Harris type of presence? Absolutely not. Najee Harris can be a Derrick Henry, Marshawn Lynch type of beast mode. He has the frame to bulk up without diminishing or sacrificing speed. That's something that you want to look at when you're looking at it from a strength and conditioning standpoint, is how big can Najee Harris get without sacrificing speed and still steamroll defenders and cash tacklers. It happens on the daily, and we all see it in college football, and film is of the utmost importance because there's no NFL combine, guys. And when I talk about dual threat coming out of the flat, I mean, he racked up 70 catches for 729 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns in the last 2 years. That's crazy production just from a dual threat running back position. You're going to tell me that Najee Harris cannot duplicate that type of production at the NFL level? You're doing yourself a disservice. You're playing yourself. You're just trying to probe and poke for something in Najee Harris's game to criticize. And there's really not much there. Tell me what Najee Harris cannot do aside from turning a 5-yard gain into a home run house call, because I don't think he has that deep speed to be a house call like Alvin Kamara on any given play, but the guy is the real deal. Now, watch me be wrong, and everyone's going to be like, oh, man, your draft crush is going to. Well, last year, my draft crush was Justin Jefferson, and you guys all know how I felt about him. Check my YouTube Twitter receipts. You can include that description, or I can include that description in the description below. You can check out that podcast in real time. But last year, my draft crush was Justin Jefferson. This year, it's Najee Harris, and the reason why I have Najee Harris ranked number 4 on my big board. So with that being said, yeah, I think that Najee Harris would fill a need, because at the end of the day, you're getting a player who is an immediate upgrade over James Conner, but also getting a guy who can really bring that north-south violent running style that the Pittsburgh Steelers really haven't seen since Jerome Bettis, I would say. I mean, Le'Veon Bell runs hard, but you really want that downhill, impose your will presence. You get a guy like Najee Harris at 24. That is a steal, and I can guarantee you, every Steelers fan in Pittsburgh would love what I'm talking about. They would love that pick. Najee Harris at number 24. They could have had Cam Akers, if I'm not mistaken, last year. They passed him up for some other one, if I'm not mistaken. But he went to the Rams. But if not, they could have got a running back. They could have got some running back in round 2, and they opted not to do it. And why that was, I don't know. That's anyone's guess. Maybe they wanted to steamroll and see what they had in James Conner for one more year. But at the end of the day, when you really look at it and take into account what Najee Harris brings to the table, it doesn't even compare, because, again, it creates a perfect storm where need meets best player available. And if I am GM Kevin Colbert, I'm looking at it from a schematic standpoint and from a need standpoint. I know games are won down in the trenches. So in a sense, I'm kind of contradicting myself, but not really, because when you look at the vertical board based on the horizontal board, as I pointed out in earlier podcasts, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. But basically, a horizontal board is based on the positional needs. You have your 1A and your 1A, and then you have your vertical board, which is ranking the top players regardless of need, and the best player position regardless of position. So Najee Harris ranked number 4. When you get the number 4 best prospect in the NFL draft at number 24, it's a no-brainer situation. You make the call, send in the card, and with the 24th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Najee Harris, running back out of Alabama. Well, that'll be it for today. I hope you liked what I had to say. If you did, please hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen as you stay up to date on all things Beast in real time. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good night. BEASTwriter out.